Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and buckle the truck up because we're going to be going over a lot today. Now, Pasta Jardula, one part of the Convo Couch, recently took a trip down to Arizona, Maricopa, to check this audit of the 2020 election out firsthand. Why is that important after the fact? So many people have been like, it's pointless, it's worthless. And I would say to those people, you don't understand. The corruption continues if you do not shine a light on the darkness. So we're going to be going over that, people he interviewed, what it was like on the ground floor. And then, for you rock finners out there, you know, the true free speech believers, the second half of this interview is going to really delve into the Tony Fauci testimony, the media's handling of it, which I'm completely surprised by and taken aback by, that even the CNNs of the world are now taking notice of this and not saying phony baloney conspiracy theory. So it's very interesting times, and you wonder how much traction this audit gets, and then perhaps the next audit gets. Maybe all that conspiracy talk flies by the wayside. Unfortunately, it may be in 18 months, 2 years, but that's going to be up to us holding our elected representatives and their minions' feet to the fire. So without further ado, Pasta Jardula is with us. You can follow him at where? Yo Pasta on the Twitter. And of course, we're going to talk to him about how you can also support him in many other ways. So Craig Pasta Jardula, how are you, sir?
I am awesome, Jason. Thank you for always providing a platform to come on and talk about elections. It's so, it's not just important to me. I think it's important to everybody. And you hit it right on the nose as far as talking about why we have to do this. Because the further we go along in this process, the more people learn and the more people understand elections. And you need to understand elections. Every single ounce and facet of it, you have to understand what's happening, what's going on, how the system can be gamed. Because at the end of the day, for me, I've always believed that this is the power, the mechanism to hold on to power. If you control the election system, no one will ever get elected. The elites or the predator class, their people will be selected and will be stuck in the hamster wheel, which we are in today.
And we are in that hamster wheel, and it's not something that just came along with the Donald Trump presidency. You know, this is something, especially when we started to get further into voting machines going on a national level in that 2004 election, and then more so in 2008, and then completely streamlined by 2012, to the point where the vast majority of these votes in some way, shape, or form are in a digital format, and that leads to things like fractional voting and less accountability, and really I guess, man, how do I say this? An obfuscation of the tools that we once used to validate elections. In other words, somebody sitting across from another person, checking a ballot, seeing if that signature on that ballot was valid, and then going through and counting that vote. So, in essence, what did you see going down last week over in Arizona?
Well, everything you just said right there, you touched on a lot of things that are really important right now. First off, the guy who just landed yesterday in Arizona, his name is Benny Smith. Some people call him Beanie Smith, but I believe it's Benny. And he is actually Bev Harris's fractional magic guy, the guy who kind of discovered fractional magic, a guy who wrote code for many years. And he's on election boards in Tennessee. Well, he's out in Arizona right now doing some work, taking a look right there and observing what's going on, and is going to be doing some reporting. So it's very important to point that out, because a lot of people don't realize that all our tabulation machines, all of them, I think there might be a case of one in one county or somewhere. I think it's Columbia, New York, which does 100% count, and then 100% hand count audit after their tabulation machines count the ballots. But other aside from that, all the tabulation machines have proprietary software in them. We've talked about this all the time. And that's since the year 2000 on, that's when everything was set in motion, when we have testimonies from guys like Clint Curtis, who in 2002 was approached by some people in the Florida State of Representatives to make a a software, a program that would flip votes and do fractional types of magic that would flip votes. Also, these are just kind of features within these systems people don't realize, and it stems from, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody who lives in like a boarding, like a housing, but they have like a community and they have a board of that housing. Like these,
Sure.
Florida has a lot of them.
For those that don't know what he's talking about, like if you live in an upscale Florida estate, a lot of people get a condo, for instance, and it's expensive. So they make their own sub rules within that building. And if you've owned it for a longer time, often those people have more of a say as well. Absolutely. It's kind of this inner government that works for, these little communities. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you hit it on the nose. Bigger places get more of a vote, more of a say. Longer tenure have more of a say. So it's actually a feature within these machines. And the guy who discovered this and broke that code when they got a hold of some machines who work for Bev Harris, he's now out in Arizona. And I think it's kind of important because, I say it all the time, what the hell, Jason, is a leftist or a rightist anymore? But it's more important people who were used to be like more ideologically lined on the left are out there also going, hey, man, no, these elections are unfair. John Roberts Brakey, he's out there right now. He's actually a liaison to Ken Bennett. Ken Bennett is the ex-Secretary of State of Arizona. He's now in charge of the Maricopa County audit. And we were able to get inside the audit, talk to Ken, talk to people on the ground. I had a great interview with Sonny Borelli the other day, who's a state senator. So he explained some of the work plan, what he can explain. And we just saw a lot of things that we needed to see. First off the bat, when you said it's important, what we're seeing, this hand count with the lazy Susans, where they're putting it around and it's going around and people are counting it 1, 2, 3. So you get 3 people counting each ballot. 2-1 wins. It's usually 3 people for one. If it's 2 for one person, 1 for the other, it still goes through. If one person says, I don't know what to put, and then one person puts Trump, one person puts Biden, they push that ballot to the side and they figure it out later like they're supposed to do. But you have an accurate, thorough, 100% count of these ballots going on right now. And it's amazing because this is something, Jason, that should be done with all of our elections all the time.
And especially with this past one where you still had a week before there was a general consensus by the media pushing what we know as an establishment narrative. Let's keep it at that. We want to stay on. In fact, I want to point this out today, Pasta. It could be a big day for Jason Bermas. In a couple hours, one of these bad boy community guidelines strike is officially, if I get my head out of the way, supposed to come down today, expires May 13th. So after this interview and a walk and talk, if the Technopoly is fair, we'll get one of those strikes back. And then maybe we can talk about election fraud, but certainly not in 2020. Not in 2020. But again, the idea that people couldn't sit down then on November 3rd in every polling place and do this same thing is completely and totally absurd, correct?
It's just ridiculous. And the fact is that the mainstream media, the establishment, the predator class, whoever you want to talk about it, all in conjunction together, tell you that there's audits. Well, they just had 2 audits in Arizona, Maricopa County. Why do they have to have another one? Well, they're not actually audits. 9 times out of 10, they're logic and accuracy tests. So they take 30 ballots, they go into the machine, they run them through, they look at the results and say, okay, the machine's working well now. So we had an audit. That's what they classify as an audit. Or in the case of Maricopa, they did a spot audit, which they knew which precincts they were going to count first. And it was less than 0.4004% of the ballots, or 0.04%. It's something ridiculous. It was under 1%. And they classify that off as, see, we gave you an audit. So everything's good. Seal everything up, put it away.
Let's stop right there because I think this is really important.
Yes, it is.
One of the things that no one talks about, in my opinion, in that Baker and Carter report is the fact that they did 2 press conferences. You can watch them on C-SPAN. If you've watched this program for a while, we did the watch along. And specifically, Jimmy Carter said, forget about whether or not you had HAVA or you had IDs, etc., all those things. He said, if we're going to use electronic voting, bare minimum, we need to do a full random audit of 1 to 3% of these machines across the board. And that is bare minimum. Now, I want people to understand what that means. That means in 1 to 3% of the use of these machines, they count 100% of, let me repeat that, 100% of the votes randomly. I think that could even be gamed, but that was never put into place. It is not discussed. And back when Jimmy Carter did this report, sure, there was proprietary software, as you know, with Bev Harris, but now you have different flavors of it across the board. So it muddies the water even further to who could be culpable. And then you have no real audits on top of it, Pasta.
Yep. 0 audits. None. I mean, across the board, we get nothing. Like I said, I think Columbia, New York is the only place they do that, the proper audit. And you hit it on the nose too. The proprietary software you talked about, now it's different flavors. So it's not just ES&S or Smartmatic, who you don't know who owns the company because it's a zombie company of another zombie company of a hedge fund, which is proprietary also ownership. Now you got groups like Dominion that are in there as well. So they've just shifted the ball, and you don't know who's gaming the system. I do definitely think it's not about Democrat or Republican. I think it's about establishment, predator class, that kind of thing, because it's like I told a lot of the people who I went to speak to, and I spoke to a lot of conservatives, Representative Mark Fincham in the Arizona State Assembly. I told Sonny Borelli. I told some people from the Hub Phoenix Radio that we did some shows that, listen, make no mistake about this, and everybody out there in your audience has to understand this. For any of those Trump fans out there, Republicans, they're just as guilty. This wouldn't have happened if they didn't participate and they didn't turn that blind eye and turn their heads. And let's
talk about that for a second. Because, a lot of people, wanted to say they were fair weather Republicans or rhinos. They love that term, rhino. It ain't new, dummies. It ain't new. It's not like 2020, the Republican just flipped on the issue. No, a lot of them, establishment hacks like these people, were put into place through these mechanisms over the last decade plus and are beholden to the special interests that want to keep them in place. So what did you expect? You should have known on the night of the election when things were going haywire in Pennsylvania and Sleepy Joe didn't have much to say, just it's bedtime and we'll see what happens in the morning. And then Trump comes out and it's just like total screw job. It's happening right now in front of your eyes. Total screw job. You should have known then no one was coming to save you. You should have known pre-election when Bill Barr was in the Justice Department on the Epstein issue. No one was coming to save you. Yeah. Give up on this idea that Republicans and Democrats give a flying fuck about you. They do not. We have to start acting that way. We have to grow up. Santa Claus isn't real, and we don't need to be treated like children by other people claiming to be adults when they are just people in the pocket of billionaires, trillionaires, and their minions.
Yep. And, I said it to these guys. I'm like, listen, I'm a Democrat. I was a Democrat before, and I'll never be part of that party. I believe in the two-party illusion. Hey, I tip my hat off to you. Azalut is what I told Sonny Borelli, meaning good luck, my friend. If you think that you want to stay in here and try to reform this party, it ain't going to happen. And I think you guys should have walked. I mean, for me, one of the most kind of messed up things was if Donald Trump was for real, during that CPAC speech he had, he wouldn't have said what he said, that, no, we have the Republican Party. He would have said, that's it. We're walking, guys. Let's go. Let's start the Patriot Party or whatever it is. But that, to me, was the final nail in the coffin to go, okay, yeah, I don't think that we should be trusting this guy at all either. He's not as anti-establishment as people think.
I gave up on him as soon as the second time we couldn't get the JFK files. I gave up on him when it went from love the WikiLeaks to all of a sudden we're dragging Julian Assange out of the Ecuadorian embassy on camera in the most disrespectful of manners. And then you find out that you have CIA front companies and Mossad front companies paid for by Sheldon Adelson, his biggest donor, spying on Assange there. And then he gets a 2-year run in Belmarsh and he does. I mean, obviously long before the non-pardon, right? I don't know if you've seen it, but the press was actually, the press secretary was recently put on the spot about Assange and what the Justice Department would be doing. This
Psaki?
redhead. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't see that. No, I didn't.
It just happened, actually. Slow news day. Steve, I'm forgetting your Misty. Misty actually posted it last night, and I watched it. And, you know, this woman doesn't want to answer the question, but she just plays it off. Oh, no, we're going to have an independent justice system. No, you have a continuation of the same corrupt deep state, because that's a real thing. Trump didn't coin it, guys. Go read some Peter Dale Scott. Okay, yeah. I'm begging you to read some Peter Dale Scott. And Peter, I love you, but your Biden stuff right now, I mean, he's in his 90s. He actually wanted Trump to go. I don't know how anybody, I mean, I'm sure you don't believe this, could believe that Joe Biden runs anything. Did you see that 16-second video I played of like the memoriam?
No, I have not. No, I mean, but you know, there's plenty of videos of Joe Biden, right? And you know what I'm saying? Like, he's just, first of all, I can't believe anybody would actually vote him. The guy couldn't fill my living room, and Donald Trump was filling stadiums, and people still are like, I hear so many people when I talk about him. Yeah, but people voted against Donald Trump. I'm like, did you vote for Joe Biden? No. Did you vote for Joe Biden? No. Who the fuck voted for Joe Biden, guys? You know what I'm saying? Hence this audit, you know, which, and at the end of the day, Jay, I don't even know what we're going to get out of this. I'm hoping to God that we really do what I want and what a lot of the people out down there want. There's people like Ken Bennett, who's the ex-Secretary of State, and John Roberts Brakey, who coined the term the Brakey method, who discovered and was talking about ballot images being posted online. You know what I'm saying? Like, he always says that voting is a private right. Counting is a public right. Like, the public has the right to be part of the counting process and understand how these ballots are tallied. And he always wanted to put the images online, because what the machines do is they take a picture of the ballot, create a digital image, and then count that digital image, right? That's how these machines work. He's even said that what we're hoping out of this thing is that we hope we come out of this where we can really get into it and change the framework. So even though we look at Donald and say, Donald, you fell short over here, you fell short over there, there's two areas in particular I love in which his rhetoric has kind of motioned a lot of his followers to get in line and say, okay, I'm going to fight for this. One of those is election integrity. The other ones is when he goes and says, the generals hate me because they want to go these stupid wars. They want to fight these stupid wars. So even though he didn't end any wars or pull the plugs like he should have, and he still funded and helped Israel and the Saudis to the brink to do what they got to do, the rhetoric means something. Also, the rhetoric when it comes to these elections. I told my, John Roberts Brakey the other day, who's a Democrat and he's a leftist, I said, dude, the Republicans are kicking your butts right now. I said, they're doing these summits and these like little conventions online, and then they're splitting off in groups to educate people. Oh, here's how we get information on the poll books. Here's how we get information on day of voting. Here's how the system works here and there. They're actually doing this, and this is something in 2016 when it was Jared Beck, our good friend Jared Beck, down in Florida, and the Bruce Spiva, who was the Democratic lawyer, who said in front of a crowd, he said, listen, the Democratic Party, if they wanted to, can go into the back room full of cigar smoke and pick whoever we want. I thought right then and there, the progressives should have planted their flag and say, let's go. Let's learn everything about elections. Let's understand how they work. Let's master it. Let's follow up on everything. Let's put a microphone under these guys. A microphone and a microscope under these guys. Everything they say, everything they do, we're going to be watching them, but they didn't do it. And unfortunately, the results that it came through on this last election are okay and good enough for the progressives because they have TDS so badly that they're not going to even look and pay attention to the systems that's at play. So,
and, I want to speak to that TDS because I don't know how anybody could think that Joe Biden runs anything. And that's really going to bring us to almost the end of this YouTube segment where I feel like we should go over to Rockfin exclusively because when we talk about who's really running the show, then, well, if it's not Joe Biden, who is? And, because I was talking to one of my buddies. He had this big, long, contrived post about how he hated Trump in the very beginning, but the faults of the country are not Joe Biden because, and then it went on from there. And I said, well, They're not the faults of Joe Biden because Joe Biden actually runs nothing. You can't tell me this man, and I posted this video where he was trying to talk about all this getting behind us in a memoriam, and it was like, verbal rotten potato salad. Like, it was all over the place. It was mush. And we had a long discussion because now I'm a Trump supporter. Now I'm hanging out with these Midwestern folks that are all Republicans and conservatives. And I'm like, dude, these are not the people that run the show. I'm like, it's the literally multi-level, multi-decade bureaucrats like Dennis Bushnell at NASA. Okay, he's a guy. Fauci is like, this is how I'm describing it to people. Andrew Capo Cuomo is a capo in this system. He runs a large state and he brings in authoritarian measures for others. This is why we're seeing COVID pass there. Okay, this is why we're seeing so much of these protections and then privileges for those that take the boop boop and restrictions for those that don't. For instance, he signed an executive order this week when a camp said they would not hire any counselors with the boop boop and no kids who had taken the boop boop could come. Executive order taking their freedoms away. And on the same flip side, of course, enforcing these COVID passes, creating that second tier system. So Tony Fauci, in that same respect, is the NIH guy, is the mouthpiece for these things, is the guy meeting with other organizations in the biolab and bioengineering and bioweapons world across. And that's where one of the connections to Wuhan will come, right? So all these guys are just well-paid, mid-level gangsters. And that's what Joe Biden was throughout his career, a.k.a. Joey B. Yeah. And now he's literally just the zombie for the program. So before we go over, I want people to support not only Pasta Jardula, but the Rockfin platform. If you are subscribed to either one of us, I've actually got a new Rockfin exclusive up there right now, only for premium subscribers. It's an old school 2009 Jason Burmis video. Pasta, tell people, other than endorsing you, watching the premium videos over on the Convo Couch, how they can support you as well.
Well, absolutely. Rockfin is definitely the number one way. I want to reiterate that. We love this platform. I call it the Rockfin Revolution and stuff. And, it's been so great to kind of like just, drift to the family I have now over here, to get the chance to come on to Jason Burmis, the Slow News Day, to work with Glory, Steve, Misty, all these people, whatnot, and kind of like, a lot of people talk about where we were going at one point, the Convo Couch, but where we're going now, I'm very proud of it. I love it. So please come over to Rockfin. We always have a PayPal, a Patreon, whatnot. Jay, before we go over to Rockfin, though, can I just say the three things that we have discovered really quickly to the YouTube people without...
Sure, absolutely.
The three things that we discovered, yes, in Arizona, they're pushing forth. They're getting the audit done, whatnot, but they've hit three hurdles right now so far. Despite the fact that Katie Hobbs, the Democratic Secretary of State, who has been just awful in pushing back against this, and the mainstream media and the local minor league mainstream media over there calling this a fraud and kind of talking about this one QAnon theory about the bamboo and the paper and kind of putting that forward to make it look like the people doing the audit are a bunch of jerks. They've come up with they've had three hurdles right now pushing through this whole thing. Number one is they don't have the passwords for the administrative logs and the systems to get into all the software. In other words, they took all the tabulation machines, they copied everything off the tabulation machines, and they gave them back to the county. Then they go in there, but they don't. There's a second set of passwords to access all the administrative logs and everything that's going on, so they can see what's going on. And let's just stop there.
Yeah. The reason that is important is because an administrator at any point could have flipped votes, deleted votes, changed ballot counts, and done all sorts of things. And basically, you want those logs also to see who may have had outside router access through IP addresses, correct?
That's the second thing, too, Jay. Not only do they have that, they don't have that. The county won't give over the routers and the slug logs for those routers to see if they were talking to the tabulation machines on election night. And they're saying that it's the blueprint to the city, and to give over those logs would put law enforcement in danger. So they're literally refusing to give it over. And by the way,
let's talk about that excuse really quick.
Yeah.
Now, when you're saying that, how in the world could that put law enforcement of any kind in danger unless you had some kind of an agency that has the ability to arrest somebody or enforce the law that was hooked in via a router that maybe shouldn't have been there. I don't know, the FBI, the CIA, the Secret Service. There's a lot of different tools that these authoritarians use through law enforcement, and it's very peculiar that they would use that excuse, which covers a wide range. I mean, hey, maybe it's DHS. They were just there for election integrity security. After all, they told us this was the most secure election ever, Pasta.
Yeah, I know. And then they came back and said, but China, Iran, and Russia did try to hack it. They can't make up their mind. So they don't have those two items. Really important, like you said. And if they had those logs and the routers, they would be able to see if it was talking to the internet. And that's something that's really crazy because a lot of people are still on the whole thing. Well, there's an air gap. They're not hooked to the internet. They've proven in Georgia and Michigan and California and all these places in New Hampshire, the Convo Couch got them to say, oh, there's a SIM card in there. Well, really, with a SIM card, I can access this machine from 5 miles down the street. So we've been proving this, and there's been a lot of other, once again, not covered by the mainstream media. There was somebody who was calling for, they followed an information request to find out that the EAC made a backroom deal with Dominion in the ES&S to say, okay, well, you can use these computers that are connected to the internet this election. We'll fix it next election. Still kept their contract, still use their machines. So they got those two items. And the third thing they don't have, and this is something I talk about all the time, Jay, the reason why I have been able to really adapt and make this subject my own is because I have a gambling background. I have a poker background. You know, I come from an Italian family. When I was 16, I was running dummy cards to Chinese restaurants and to hospitals, and they're parlay cards. So I was always good with numbers. It was my thing. And in fact, the Convo Couch, my partners, they make fun of me all the time because, you know, Johnny and Fiorella, they have very highly educated, have great degrees. Fiorella reads like Rain Man. She can read 3 pages in 3 seconds and stuff like that. But when it comes to basic math, they got to take out their calculator, and I'm going bam, 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 bam. But I also know where to look. And I also know when something's going on because I'm a poker player, and there's different elements of poker. And I look at the elections the same way. We got the tabulation machines. We got the in-house voting. Oh, but then we got the absentee and mail-in ballot system. Mm-hmm. That is where I think in this particular election is where they game the system most, by clustering, getting a hold of extra ballots and shoving them through the machine to get the count up. You could always mix it with the back of the house, but I think there was a lot of people feeling like, wait a second, they're catching on to us in the back of the house over here. They're going to start looking for the software. Sooner or later, they're going to get a hold of that software where we can't hold them off and say it's proprietary and say, these are our publicly funded elections. You have this software in escrow. We want to match it up. So they went to the ballot thing, the old John F. Kennedy way. Let's stuff the ballots with dead people kind of way. Here's the thing in Maricopa yet. And the system is so messed up. And when I tell people in Maricopa who don't even realize what's going on, how their system works, they're like, wait a second. Runbeck, which is the name of the contractor who does the absentee ballots for Maricopa, mails out the ballots. The ballots then get sent to Maricopa County. Maricopa County doesn't open those. Maricopa County doesn't leave those for a table of a Republican, Democrat, and a Libertarian to check the signature and then move it on. No. They send all the ballots back to Runbeck, and Runbeck has a machine, a Pitney Bowes machine, that canvasses the ballot, takes it out. Then check this out, Jay. It takes a picture of the signature and digitally sends it back to Maricopa. So the only way that Maricopa verifies and scrutinizes signatures is digitally from the freaking company that contracts out their ballots. And guess what? They don't have the wet signatures on the envelopes yet for the audit. So they don't have that as well. So those are 3 freaking hurdles that are in the way right now. Don't get me wrong, it's great. Even Johnny corrects me all the time. Because Johnny's run down audits. John has been thrown out of a room in California for the audit. They let him back in because he's just been up their ass. But he says, Pasta, this is still exciting. They're counting all these ballots the way they're doing it. It's great. But they have to authenticate those ballots. And that's the whole issue that comes into play, too. And that's where the mainstream media is trying to say, like, these QAners are looking for bamboo in these ballots. No, these ballots could have come from fucking Kinko's down the street. They could come from anywhere. So,
yep.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Listen, that's what I'm talking about. This is beyond Donald Trump. This is beyond the Democratic or Republican Party. This is one person, one vote. We have the technology to ensure that we could have the most secure elections ever. I mean, fraud is always going to be a possibility in many respects. But again, we have technology that can empower human beings with real and legitimate systems of counting ballots, not with a machine, again, using human beings and then using the technology to check up on those human beings in real time and allow other human beings in real time to double, triple, and quadruple check. And they don't want that. They want a system with the least amount of transparency. That's why people like us have been fighting for transparency. That's why Arizona matters. That's why I would encourage people to what? Support this guy. They live streamed so much of the floor as they checked those ballots so people could see what was actually going on a ground level. Show me the news agency that was doing that. There wasn't one. There wasn't
and also,
one.
Those questions, everything I told you, it's on my Twitter. Go to the YouTube. You'll see Ken Bennett. This is right from the horse's mouth, Jay. This ain't from this person, that person. This is right from the freaking horse's mouth, who's in charge of the election, running the election, and his second in command, his liaison, and I, we talk on the phone every day, John Roberts, Breaky, and he's using this moment to shine right now. And we just hope we come out of this with a system and a framework that is respectable, honest, and transparent, and it's 100% publicly verified, transparent, tracked, the whole 9 yards. This is our election system, and people just kind of floss it off. They don't look at the contracts, because here's the thing, Jay, all those contractors we talked about, Dominion, ESNS, Hart, and Smartmatic, I think I've said it on your show before. Not only is their software proprietary, so is their ownership. Same thing with these paper companies. You don't even know who owns them, and the way it is, here's the game. The paper company has to be certified, has to be approved, by the machine companies, the tabulation machine, saying, yeah, their ballots will be accessible with our machine. So it's one whole big mafia, and everybody's getting greased while you, the people, get screwed over and are told these fugazi results and just have to accept them.
And there you have it, folks. So listen, if you're over on the YouTube, it's time to thumbs the video up, subscribe, and share to both of us, please. And then, guess what? The Rockfin app is in the house. Now, there are a few things. First of all, the app is completely and totally awesome. You can't tip on the app. I know a lot of people are complaining about that. I actually did the meeting yesterday. I brought it up. But there's another feature I'm trying to get them to work on even more. These guys are working real hard. I certainly don't want to sound ungrateful, because they're killing it. And before we get there, I do want to talk about some of the tips. Vince, thank you so much. And Michael McCarthy, we really do appreciate it. All the support of the show is necessary. We're fully demonetized on YouTube for a year plus. I've tried to get my channel reviewed, not happening. I can't get a thumbnail reviewed. I don't know how I got my channel back a little over a month ago when they gave me strike 3 and struck me down. So we're about to talk Fauci. We're about to talk Rand Paul. We're about to talk virus origins, the origin story of this thing. We're talking censorship, and we're not going to talk about it here because there are just certain things you can't talk about on this platform. So YouTube,